Hello. I just want to say hello to the Five Fish Fangirls. No, that's wrong. I want to say hello to the Five-ish Fangirls. Yes, that's right.
Yes.
Yes, that's correct. Anyway, hello. Hello. That's 5 hellos to the Five Fish-ish Fangirls. Bye.
The tangents and squee continue all the way to episode number 11 of the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. They're not that different from you, are they? Same haircuts, full of hormones, just like you. Invincible, just like you feel. The world is their oyster. They believe they're destined for great things, just like many of you. Their eyes full of hope, just like you. Did they wait until it was too late to make from them their lives even one iota of what they were capable? Because you see, gentlemen, these boys are now fertilizing daffodils. Because if you listen real close, you can hear them whisper their legacy to you. Go on, lean in, listen. Do you hear it? Carpe. Hear it? Carpe. Carpe diem. Seize the day, boys. Make your lives extraordinary. Welcome everyone to this week's episode of the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. So glad you could join us. Let's start off by going around the virtual table and see who has joined us this week.
This is Brittany from Taos.
This is Chrissy in Salt Lake City.
Michelle in Kitchener, Ontario.
And I'm Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. Hello everyone. We once again have a full episode for you. Got some news, some interesting rumor that we may touch on here a little bit, and then a bittersweet topic that we're going to discuss this week. But we'll get to that shortly. First, let's jump straight into news. And a piece of news that I remembered to add here just at the last moment before we started recording. A piece of casting news. And I'm going to butcher his last name, but I'm going to do it anyway. Kyle MacLachlan? McLaughlin? I wanted to sound more Irish than that. McLaughlin has joined Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as Skye's father. They've not given a name. Because we all know at this point, Skye is just Skye. She's like Sharon Madonna, no last name. But he has signed on as Skye's father, and we saw what could be supposedly Skye's father at the end of the season finale, but of course it was just an arm. Granted, it was a very bloody arm. It was quite gross. But it was just an arm, so at the time it was just, I'm sure, just a body stand-in. But now we'll know who that arm is attached to, I guess, for the upcoming season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. No idea if we'll see him in the first episode of the new season, or if they'll work their way into it, if he's just going to be a guest star, or if he'll be a recurring character. We don't know yet. Other than he is going to be Skye's father. On a side note, if you watch the Teen Choice Awards, Brett Dalton, aka Grant Ward, won a Teen Choice Award for TV Male Breakout Star. So, which, you know, there's award ceremonies here and there, but I know the Teen Choice Awards are fan voted, so I think it's cool that there is, I guess, a large enough teen demographic that voted for him to win. So I like the idea of that there are teens watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and apparently love it enough to have voted for him to help him win that award. So, yay! So, in other TV news,
Season 8, Episode 2 of Doctor Who leaked again.
Oh boy.
yeah.
Oh, lovely.
So this is kind of old, since they apparently leaked on Sunday, I think.
Something like that.
Yeah, and we recorded on Saturday last week.
We recorded our episode,
Yeah.
so probably Sunday.
Yeah. Or they fessed up to it on Sunday.
Apparently. What?
Who knows when it
episode
leaked the
was originally
BB?
alongside the series premiere Deep Breath, but from reports at the time was unable to be downloaded. The new release, like Deep Breath, is in black and white and without many effects, shots, and music. The BBC have urged fans not to download the episode. The BBC said earlier this month, BBC Worldwide has taken this issue extremely seriously and disciplinary action has been implemented as a result of the incident. While there is still a risk that this leak will result in more of this content emerging, so far the impact has been contained. And also, we deeply regret this and apologize to all the show's fans, the BBC and the cast and crew who have worked tirelessly making the series. We would like to make a plea to anyone who might have this material and spoilers associated with it, not to share it with a wider audience, so that everyone can enjoy the show as it should be seen when it launches.
Oh boy! You know what? I think we're all gonna breathe a little bit more easier when we're well into Series 8. But I'm not gonna. I revisit my rant of a few weeks ago when all this was really hitting the fan, and just there are people that don't like fun and they like to spoil. So please don't spoil. We're almost there. We've got less than a week to Series 8, so
I know
it's this Saturday. We're recording on Sunday. It's let's
16.
hashtag keep me spoiler free.
On a slightly more positive note, there's been a new trailer for Deep Breath.
Yay!
So we'll post a link to that in the show notes, and you can check that out before Saturday.
Which is very exciting. I like I was saying, pre-recording that we had the Series 8 trailer. We're like, oh, all this fun stuff, like, cyborgs and funny-looking creatures and dinosaurs and blah, blah, blah. And then you get this trailer for just episode 1, and you see some of the stuff from the other trailer, and you realize it's going to be in episode 1, like the giant dinosaur. I'm like, yeah, we're getting the giant dinosaur right off the bat.
Yay.
Yay. I don't know why giant dinosaurs make me happy, but apparently they do.
Well,
it's your inner 10-year-old.
I guess.
That. I don't know if I heard something, but I think that was something that I'd already in my mind that it was. I'd somehow already assumed, I think, and then this trailer basically confirms that.
Yeah.
So go watch the trailer and get excited for Deep Breath on August 23rd, this Saturday on BBC America, BBC One, and Space, and wherever else you're watching.
Yay!
Yay!
Alright. I guess I'm up unless you guys are all done about Doctor Who.
For now.
For now.
Yeah, for now.
Tangent.
Okay.
You never know.
That's true. Some Frozen news. There's a new special called The Story of Frozen, making a Disney animated classic, which is a collaboration with Lincoln Square Productions and Walt Disney Animation Studios. A breathtaking and fantastic saga, the special tells the real story of making a modern movie based on a timeless tale that nearly overnight became a cultural touchstone for legions of fans. Some of the things to expect from this special is, which is an hour long, the audience will hear from Frozen stars Kristen Bell and I can never pronounce her name.
That's okay. John Travolta can't either. Adele Dazeem.
Nice. Well, yes. Who played the sisters, Anna and Elsa.
Yeah.
The directors, songwriters, producers, and artists, and chief creative officer John Lestiel.
Lasseter.
Having horrible names.
It's okay.
Viewers will also take a journey to the beautiful Norwegian villages and landscapes that inspire the look of Arendelle, the fictional kingdom, and see images and footage from research trips to Norway, Quebec, and points beyond that help create the film's unforgettable look and feel. The special also includes some exciting announcements about the next chapter of Frozen and never-before-seen preview our Frozen characters Anna, Elsa, and Kristoff on an upcoming episode of ABC's smash hit Once Upon a Time, which is really exciting. And this would air Tuesday, September 2nd, 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Eastern Time on the ABC television networks.
And
This is really exciting for me. What?
I was going to say, as they say, check your local listings.
Yeah.
Yes, check your local listings.
But it will be on ABC because it's owned by Disney.
Yep.
Yes.
So, I wonder. I'm just thinking out loud here that the fact that it says it'll include some announcements about the next chapter Frozen. We already know that they're doing books and stuff, and we know it's going to be on Once on a Time. But there's a rumor that's running rampant, which I'm almost guaranteed that this is actually going to come true. Is at Epcot at Walt Disney World in Florida, they have a Norway pavilion, and they've got a boat ride that right now is a boat ride and. You encounter some trolls, and it shows you like an oil rig and a polar bear. It's supposed to kind of give you the feel of Norway. And the last few months, a rumor's been growing that they're going to close that down and change it and give it a Frozen theme to it, which a lot of people are really not happy about. But seriously, this ride could use an update, so I'm kind of all for it. But supposedly it is closing at the end of the month. So I wonder if
well, that's
I wonder if maybe they may not announce something in this special about that happening. So we'll see. It's a rumor, but it's one of those rumors that I hate to talk about rumors, especially with the Disney parks, because especially right now, there's so many floating around. But I can usually tell when ones seem to have legit legs to stand on, and I think this may be one of them. So,
well, it'd only be a matter of time before there's some big Frozen something at one of the parks. So
yeah. Well, they
if not this, it will be something else. I'm sure.
They've added a Frozen float. That sounds funny. It sounds like a drink. A Frozen themed float to both of the daytime parades at both Walt Disney World and Disneyland, and you can meet Anna and Elsa at Walt Disney World and the Magic Kingdom, and the wait times are obnoxiously long, 4 or 5 hours long to meet Anna and Elsa. So, I mean, Frozen is just huge. So, I mean, it's there, but this would make something way more permanent besides just a character meet and greet. So,
yeah. Well, the thing is, they're going to be those characters are going to be in the parks for years and years to come.
Oh yes.
So it's
Yeah, they're not going anywhere.
Me telling myself because I haven't been back to Disney in 10 years and I really want to go back. I'm like, they'll be there whenever you get there.
Yeah, they will be. They're not going anywhere. They are permanently part of the lexicon, just like Mickey and Snow White. So,
and I mean, they've got Belle and Ariel and all those others.
Yes.
So,
So,
yep, they're there to stay.
Yep. So. And it'll only be a matter of time, I'm sure, too, where they will do it'll probably be sometime next year would be my guess, is that they always do I don't want to call it a coronation, but it's almost like an induction ceremony. They did it with Merida was the last one after Brave came out, but they did this whole ceremony and made Merida an official Disney princess and welcomed her into the fold. So it's only a matter of time before they do the same thing for Anna and Elsa.
I'm surprised they haven't done that already.
I think I've read that that's supposed to happen either at the end of the year or the beginning of next year, but I could be wrong because I read this article months ago.
Yeah, it usually takes a little bit. I don't know what the logic is with the timing, but it was probably a good 6 months to a year after Brave came out before Merida was officially inducted into the Disney Princess fan club, I guess.
So maybe I read that right because it'd be a year in November.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would fit the time frame.
Yeah. So, like
I
I
guess
said,
they space it out to kind of keep on the, keep the hype going.
yes. Well,
Which
and it,
the Frozen hype is. Well, I hesitate to call it hype because that makes it sound
It's
like
not.
it's artificial and it is marketed and
Yeah.
stuff, but people genuinely love Frozen, and
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things that it was so well done. It was kind of like, I remember when they were talking. I saw the special about when they were making The Lion King, and they were talking about at the time when they were making it, everyone expected Pocahontas. They were working on Pocahontas at the same time as they were working on Lion King, and they wanted Pocahontas to be the big, grand, epic movie that everybody would love, just like they love Beauty and the Beast and all this stuff. And it actually was, and Lion King was just going to be like, oh, it's just this, this movie about lions that no one would really remember, but then it's swapped. Like, Lion King is the one everybody remembers, and Pocahontas is the one that everybody's more about, because they're just like, whatever. For whatever reason, that happened. Everybody loves Lion King. Like, my sister, who right now she's going to school to be an animator, and Lion King is hands down her favorite movie of all time. And so,
yeah.
Take that. So it could have, Frozen could have flopped, but it didn't. It blew up and was awesome because everybody genuinely loved it.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it is a lot of marketing, but it's not hype. I think it's genuinely got a fan base that is not going to go anywhere. I think it'll be on the same level as like Mickey Mouse, and probably, I mean, if you're talking other princess franchises like Cinderella. Like, Cinderella is the princess in the parks, and Anna and Elsa are just the modern day Cinderella. Yeah. So they're the hype, the fandom is not going to die off.
Oh yeah.
Nope.
So.
And I consider myself part of the Frozen fandom, if that term could be applied, because I saw and I fell in love with that movie just instantly.
The music is just so catchy.
I hadn't even heard any of the music before I saw it, and I didn't see Frozen until January.
Yeah.
So I don't know how I missed all that, but I did. And then I saw the movie, came home, and had to download the soundtrack from iTunes because it was just so good, and I just loved it, and I still love it.
That's what. Did you get the deluxe, or did you just get the normal
I just
one?
got. For the soundtrack, I think I just got the regular whatever was on. I just searched on iTunes Frozen, and that was the soundtrack that came up. So
I got the deluxe as.
I don't know if I got deluxe.
I don't know if the original, the normal one, but the deluxe has a lot of like outtake songs.
Nope, I don't have that one.
Which are really nice because it's like because it explains like how the story was gonna be, but then they changed the story. It's like they're talking about how there was like this prophecy that like, and Elsa was gonna be more evil. It's like, whoa.
I didn't go that direction.
Yeah, same here. It's kind of interesting. And sorry.
No, you're fine. I didn't know there was a deluxe one. I might have to search that up. That might be interesting to listen to.
Nobody's going to tell us to let it go.
Nope.
Ching. Anyway, in other movie-related news, mark your calendars, people. July 22nd, 2016, we are getting the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers reboot movie!
Woo! Sorry if I just blew out your eardrums, people, but dude, this is so awesome.
Yes.
This is amazing.
They have Zach Stentz and Ashley Miller, who apparently are writers from Thor, wrote the script, and the script is based on a story written by Robert Orkey, who apparently was a writer for the Star Trek reboot, that reinvents the tale of ordinary high school kids who possess the power to save the world. If you're of a certain age, you know all about the Power Rangers. Yes. I grew up on the Power Rangers. I love them. I swore up and down I was going to marry Tommy one day.
I went through a phase where I would only wear pink to school because I wanted to be the Pink Ranger.
Yeah. You had to wear the color.
I think I did that too, and I didn't even like pink. That wasn't my favorite color, and I still wore it because of that.
Oh, my sister did it. She loved the Yellow Ranger. She was all about the yellow. Oh gosh, I'm so excited for this.
Yes, we have no director. We have no casting. At this point, I made a comment to my husband the other day. I said, just bring back the old cast, remake the original movie with a bigger budget and better CGI, and I would be happy.
He probably gave you a weird look, right?
Yeah, a little bit. But apparently, this release date also shares movie theater space with Guy Ritchie. Apparently, is making a movie about King Arthur, which whoop-de-doo, I guess. Madonna's ex-husband is making a King Arthur movie.
Yeah. So. This was news to me, and everyone's like, "Oh no, what's going to happen? This is just like Superman and Batman versus Captain America."
Not even close.
Like, are you kidding me?
No, not even close. So, no, I have a feeling that between King Arthur and the Power Rangers, I think the Power Rangers is going to win.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. No. And I would not, obviously we know nothing as far as cast and the storyline and all. This is a reboot as far as we know, so this will probably be an origin story, just like the TV show Day of the Dumpster. We all know the pilot episode. So this will be kicking off the franchise from the beginning. But I would not be surprised for a few cameos from some of the original cast, including Jason David Frank.
Oh, yeah, he'll show up whether they want him to or not.
Oh yes, I would put money down on that.
Mm-hmm.
So.
This makes me want to watch the original movie again.
Yeah. So we just
times I've seen this.
I watched the movie so many times, and we had it on VHS. And I watched it over and over and over and over. I could quote it word for word from beginning to end.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. And I bought it on DVD last year after meeting David Yost at Salt Lake Comic Con. And I was like, why? How do I not own this movie myself? I have it at my parents' house, but I was like, nope, I need this. And it's brilliant. I love it.
Oh yes.
It purely for nostalgia.
It is a beautiful piece of mid-90s cinematography, man. I tell you what.
Yep.
Beautiful.
Fantastic. Well, speaking of fantastic adaptations, that's not it. Outlander. How did we go from Power Rangers to Outlander? I don't know. But Outlander, which just premiered on Starz, is actually renewed for a second season. For most of this month, actually, the first episode of Outlander was available online before the official preview on Starz. I don't think it's available anymore. Gosh darn it! But I did watch it, and it was fantastic. I loved it. I think it looks marvelous. They're a little bit different than what I pictured the characters would look like, but I figure because it's on Starz and it's a premium cable channel and they're a little darker and grittier, I figure it's going to look that way anyway. But anyway, on their second season, Starz has renewed the time travel saga from I'm just reading this off. Developer, executive producer Ronald D. Moore and Sony Pictures TV for a second season. Season 2 will consist of at least 13 episodes and will be based on the second book in Diana Gabaldon's bestseller Outlander series entitled Dragonfly and Amber, which I am currently reading. I'm halfway through, finally. And this article also notes, unlike HBO's fantasy series Game of Thrones, which is catching up with author George R.R. Martin on source material, the Starz drama has a long ways to go. Gabaldon has written 8 Outlander books so far, which the latest one, Written in My Own Heart's Blood, just barely came out. So if you want to get into Outlander, you do have a ways to go, but it is worth it, and I'm just barely starting it. I read the first book last year or the year before, and They're long, but they are quite good.
Yeah, I've got the first book here in my hands, and it is fairly thick. It's like a paperback. Let me find the last.
I'm sure it's getting up to 1,000 pages.
800
and they're all like that.
850 plus a preview of the next book.
Okay. And the books, as I understand it, like, because they start out with Jamie and Claire as the two main characters, and then they add characters, and there's actually a spin-off series. Now I can't remember the name of the character in that one, but yeah, she just writes and writes and writes, and it's all very well researched. So you can't really pigeonhole what this series is, because it's time travel, it's romance, it's historical fiction. Like the history is very well researched. Like she has done her homework up one side and down the other, and there are even history professors who look at this and been like, yeah, this is very historically accurate. And then they time travel back and forth. There's magic involved, so you can't really say that it's purely romance or purely sci-fi or purely historical. It's a mix of both, of everything, basically. There's something for everybody to enjoy here. So anyway, if any of that sounds interesting, pick it up.
Well, I look forward to getting into it, because I took it out from the library on your recommendation, Chrissy.
Oh, thanks. So anyway, but yeah, so there'll be another season. I did see the first episode. I don't know if I'll get to watch the rest of the season as it goes out, because I don't have Stars, and to my knowledge, there's not an avenue online to watch this legally. Not promoting anything here, but you know what people are going to do. Anyway, but the first episode really looked good. I almost, like the way it was paced, I almost expected it to go for longer, just because I just was like, I was just really getting into it, and then all of a sudden it just ends. I'm like, oh, right, this is only the first episode. There's going to be 12 more later. So they have to have something to keep you coming back. But the characters are quite good. I actually even like Frank, who is Claire's husband, before she time travels. Which in the book I didn't really like him that much, because I knew he wasn't the main love interest. Which it sounds weird, but there's time travel involved. There's a reason she has to marry Jamie. Sorry, spoilers, but I think you knew it was coming. It happens early on in the first book. But yeah, there's a reason that all this happens the way it does. So it sounds weird because I'm not explaining it very well. But anyway, but the first episode's really good.
Maybe I can make an attempt to explain it once I've read it, but that's
if you want to tackle it, do it.
Well, I'll read it first, and then I'll see if I feel up to trying to explain it better.
Well, the first episode actually has a scene that explains why. It kind of helps explain that it actually is okay that this happens, and it kind of freaks Claire out a little bit when she hears this, but then as the story unfolds, and it just kind of it kind of works itself out. So anyway,
okay,
it's not incest. We'll say that.
That's good. This isn't Game of Thrones.
Yeah, this is not Game of Thrones. Yeah, it's a little. I like to, because it is getting compared to Game of Thrones purely because it's based on a book series, and that's the only real comparison that it has. But I think it's a much sweeter story.
Okay,
that's
anyway.
Good.
It's been really hard for me not to start reading it right now, but I know that's a good idea.
Okay, well then we better proceed through our show so Michelle can start reading Outlander, because she needs to.
Yeah, I'm just going to put it where I can't see it. Hopefully that will help.
I have mine on.
I would say sit on it, but at 800-something pages, that would probably be uncomfortable. So
yeah,
it'll give you another 3 inches.
That's true.
Just taller.
Behind some things.
You need a booster seat in the car.
Exactly. Anyway.
So,
Onward.
in non-news news, we're just going to touch on this really shortly because we
not believing it.
We don't really want to get into rumors just because they're that. We really like to stick with stuff that we know is fact. But the fact that this has been floating around Facebook and apparently has people convinced that it's not just a rumor and is fact, we kind of want to address it here.
They're proven to be unreliable in this sort of thing.
Exactly. We won't go into a whole lot of detail here. It's a piece of casting news related to Doctor Who. And it's only come from one source that is known to be very unreliable. But unfortunately, I saw earlier today that the Huffington Post used this unreliable source as their source and talking about the same piece of quote-unquote news. So,
and they're only doing this because Series 8 is coming back.
Exactly.
It's coming. They're on the world tour. So they want to horn in on, we got to make some news, so let's just throw this out there, whether or not it's true.
Right. Well, they know that people are going to be going to Google and Googling Doctor Who and hoping that their thing pops up and people will be going to their website, and then therefore it gets them more clicks and more money from people clicking on their stuff. So
don't encourage these people is what we're telling you.
Exactly. So until we start hearing this from legit news places that aren't using this particular source, or an official announcement from the BBC and or the parties involved, this is purely a rumor, and at this point, I don't think it has a whole lot of legs to stand on. But that's just me.
Yeah,
that may just be me not wanting this particular person to leave. But because I know a lot of people are very upset at this particular prospect, although some people are like, I'll take their spot.
If you want attention with Doctor Who, say that somebody's leaving, say that something is changing, and you'll whip everybody up into a frenzy.
Exactly.
And they just sit. I picture some sort of Dr. Evil doppelganger in the back, twirling his mustache and cackling like, "Ha ha! I've got them all upset and frantic, and look at me, bwahaha."
Yeah.
Actually, I picture a lot of media people that way.
Yeah.
I think they thrive on chaos.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter who they are.
Yeah.
That's all they do.
Just the first rule.
I went to journalism school for a year.
Yeah.
I know how this works.
Yeah,
that's why I quit.
First rule of journalism and the internet: always check your sources.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Well, that's the first rule of journalism that gets ignored.
Yeah. So.
If you can't tell, I don't have a high opinion of journalism.
Yeah.
Sorry to our listeners who are in the media and press.
Glenn.
I'm sure you, Glenn and Keith. I'm sure you guys do wonderful at your job, but generally speaking, your profession has not covered itself with glory.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But that's it for news and non-news. For this week, and we do have feedback this week. I'm sure you noticed that Holly is not with us this week. She is trapped in the vortex, but she was.
We miss you, Holly.
Yes.
Yes.
But she is with us, even though she's not with us. So
yes, she did send in feedback, which dovetails into our topic, which very, very 10 o'clock news sort of thing. If you have not heard, or if you're still in denial, like so many of us, including me, you heard the news that Robin Williams, a legendary actor, comedian, childhood staple, passed away this past week. And so we're going to be celebrating his life and some of our favorite performances from him. And Holly sent in some sent in a note for us to read since she's not here, because she wanted to share her thoughts on Robin Williams. In fact, that's her subject line, thoughts on Robin Williams. And she says, "Hello, fellow fangirls. When I found out the news about Robin Williams passing on Monday, I was surprised and shocked as everyone. We've all grown up watching him and have been touched by his performances, from watching the reruns of Happy Days and Mork and Mindy with his trademark Nanu Nanu, to the genie in Aladdin, the bat in Ferngully, playing Peter Pan in Hook, and Jumanji, to the dramedy roles in Good Morning Vietnam, Dead Poet Society, and Patch Adams, just to name a few. And the feel-good comedies of Mrs. Doubtfire. I still to this day, whenever I hear Dude Looks Like a Lady, I see him in his Mrs. Doubtfire getup, dancing around the house, cleaning in my head. RV, Old Dogs, and more that I'm probably missing. He left behind quite the body of work and touched countless of lives with his brand of comedy and acting. We'll be joining you next week and Not Stuck in the Vortex. Holly from Wisconsin."
Yeah.
So a lot of what she covered is what we're going to be covering today as well. So
yeah.
we have gathered
stuff we talked about in the pre-show meeting.
Yeah.
Oh yes, definitely.
So we've compiled our quote unquote top 10, because we use the term top 10 very loosely around here.
Yeah. These aren't in any order whatsoever. These
Yeah.
are just the ones that we remembered the most and wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
Of our favorite Robin Williams performances.
Yeah.
So this is how, we want to remember him and just thanks for the memories.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much. Because most of this I'm looking at it like, yeah, this is my childhood.
Yep.
So
again, these are in no particular order, but we got to start somewhere. So
Yeah. Want me to start?
you're at the top of the list.
You're up
true.
there.
Okay. Sorry. The first one up is, which is appropriate because it's the first memory I have of Robin Williams, and I'm pretty sure it's the first memory of a lot of people, especially in my age group, is, of course, when he played the lovable, wonderful, magical genie from Aladdin.
Mm-hmm.
I remember falling in love. As soon as he came out of the lamp and started singing "Friend Like Me," favorite character right there.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know, just a funny character and lovable and loyal. Even when he was had to listen to Jafar when he had the lamp, he was still loyal to Aladdin, which I thought was really amazing. And
yeah.
What's
the character? I was just going to say the character itself of the genie was, to this point in my experience with Disney, I knew Disney from when I was very, 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 very tiny, and I'd seen a few movies up by this point, a few Disney movies, but there was, in my mind, there was such a departure and such a difference with the genie because the character was just, what am I trying to say? He was unique. He was very, very different from anything else that I had seen in Disney. And now that I'm older and I've seen more Disney movies, I don't think there's another character that's like the genie. I mean, it was so, I'm going to say it. It was a revolutionary character for that time because it was one of the first that had pop culture references. And they're anachronistic, but they work for the character and the story because that's just how he is. And I was kind of thinking, well, now how in the world would this genie that's supposed to be in the Middle East in I don't know what time, what year
I read
exactly?
a fan theory that it's actually way in the future.
Or way in the future. Well, I was like, well, he's a genie, he's magic, he can time travel. So of course he knows because he's
that. He's been in there for 10,000 years, starting from a different point than we assume, like a later point than, based on certain references, like he made about the 3rd century.
Oh, yeah. So, but it's like, week I saw a story of someone talking about, because he played the merchant. He also played the merchant at the very beginning of the movie. And
ancient Tupperware. See, still good.
Yeah, and what the way that scene came about is the animators brought him into a room, and they had a table that had all these random objects, and it was covered with a sheet, so he hadn't seen them, and they were just like, okay, we want you to riff on these things and just give us ideas. Like, they were gonna take sketches of him because they wanted to animate the genie with his, or this merchant or the character with his mannerisms, and just kind of see what he came up with. And they ended up actually using everything that's in that scene and he looked at everything and just made, started improvising, and I guess, they have the thing that he's like, the thing he goes, hookah and coffee maker makes Julian fries do not break, and then he taps on the table and it breaks. He goes, it broke, and that, like, you can just imagine him playing with whatever this thing is, and it breaks, and he just goes, it broke, and he incorporates that into his performance. And apparently they had the animators just rolling on the floor laughing, and they couldn't really draw much because he was just cracking all these jokes, and they actually couldn't. There's actually stuff in that bit that they could not use in a Disney movie because it was just too crass, but it was just so funny. And I'm actually curious what that. I wonder if that exists.
Like, if the genie is what made it in, what didn't?
Yeah.
And I also, something that I heard on Tumblr as a result of this, like, that has come out, is that Schindler's List was being recorded at the same time across the street.
Oh,
so after he was done his stuff for Aladdin, he would go across and cheer up the people who were making that.
Because Schindler's List is a downer of a movie. And I can't.
Oh, yes.
I can't imagine making that movie. But he went over and
he would
crack jokes with that.
Go across the street, cheer up the people making Schindler's List, which is so. I mean, it's just. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just what he did. Is he wanted to make people laugh, and he was just so good at it. It just seemed to come from nowhere. And I was rewatching Aladdin this week, kind of thinking, a lot of the genie is improv, and I can see where all that improv was happening. And I love improv. I love watching good improv. I could never do it myself, but when I'm watching someone that's doing it and they're really good at it, I love it. And I'm just trying to figure out, watching that movie, how all that was incorporated into the story. But at the same time, it makes the genie a workable character in the movie, and he just does it just so perfect and so good. And I mean, that's, and when they did the sequels to Aladdin, I know there was some behind the scenes strife about that, and they did the TV show, and they got someone else to voice the genie, and it's like, you know what, you're doing good, but you're just not my genie, and it never was the same without Robin Williams, and like when he came back to do Aladdin, the King of Thieves. It kind of worked, but the style was a little too different because they were trying to write him. They weren't letting him do improv as much, which was kind of sad because that's what the genie was. So it wasn't quite as good. But stick with the original. The genie's awesome.
Yeah.
Yep.
I have it's a 2-disc special edition version of Aladdin that came out in like 2004. That's got a lot of good, like, behind-the-scenes stuff and, like, a Q&A that's emceed by Gilbert Godfrey, of all people. he was the voice of Iago. So, but they show some behind-the-scenes, like, footage of, like, the actors performing the voices in the recording booth and the animators and all that. There's a few snippets in there, and then I think you can watch the DVD. There's a version you can watch on the DVD of the movie that's got like pop-up facts and stuff. So if you're a behind the scenes and like factoid nerd like I am when it comes to film, and you're a fan of Aladdin and maybe want to update your DVD collection, I would recommend the 2-disc special edition. So
Cool.
So, next on the list is probably one of his more well-known dramatic roles, and is a movie that I've seen several times because it is my husband's absolute favorite movie in the entire world. It is Dead Poet Society, where he played teacher John Keating, which if we were talking pre-recording here, and Chrissy mentioned that she'd never seen it. It is a beautiful movie, not in beautiful like the way it looks, but just the story in itself. It's beautiful yet heart-wrenching at the same time. He's a teacher. He's an English teacher at an all-boys school, and these are teenage boys that got hormones running rampant, and there's an all-girls school that's nearby, and some of the boys go and interact with some of the girls, and they're all just trying to figure out who they are and who they want to be, because they're all like upperclassmen or the equivalent, I guess, of this school. So that they realize that graduation is coming up and they've got to decide what they want to do for college and careers, and some of them are being pressured by their parents and all this stuff. And his character, John, is this English professor that's new to the school, and his teaching methods are just so not anything that these boys had seen before and this school had ever seen before. He has them open up their English book and go to like the introduction page, which is supposed to be like a synopsis of, the idea behind the English language and this literature and poetry and stuff. And he tells them to rip out the page and ignore what it has to say. And, he has them stand on their desks so that they can see the world from a different perspective. And, he turns the whole idea of an education upside down. And it's a brilliant performance, especially for me. And I think for my husband too, because my husband is kind of the same way. As he likes to look at things and think of things in a slightly sideways way. But I know personally in high school and in college, I had professors that were kind of the same way. It wasn't all about it isn't all about just being taught facts and figures and regurgitating it into exams and midterms and final exams and getting a passing grade and moving on. It's about taking this knowledge and using it to grow and expand your mind and all this. And it's as not someone who's a teacher, but someone who loves learning, having a teacher come to me with that way of thinking was just it's like, whoa, I didn't know you could do this in class. I didn't so it's a brilliant performance of Robin Williams and the rest of the cast too. There's a few faces that if that you'll probably recognize, that people that have had moved on to other stuff, television shows and movies and the like. So there's a few familiar faces on top of Robin Williams, but it's a wonderful performance, but it's sad too. I don't want to give away too much of the plot, but I was telling Chrissy, because she said she hadn't seen it. I said, if you're someone that's not comfortable with the idea of, unfortunately, considering the way Robin died, if you're not a fan of seeing things like suicide in movies and television shows, it is probably not a movie you want to watch, because there is a character that commits suicide in the film, and especially now, knowing how Robin Williams passed, it may even be more heart-wrenching to watch. But if that's something you think you can handle watching and you haven't seen it, see it. So, because it's a wonderful movie. So it's one of those ones that my my husband watches at least once a year because it's one of his favorites. So
yeah, it was. Oh, go ahead, Brittany.
I was gonna say, Oyo, I was trying to remember if I actually seen it because it's one that I might have seen, but I wasn't sure. But after hearing you describe it, I have seen it. So it's like, oh yay, I have seen it.
Yeah.
So sorry.
Yeah.
Your turn, Chrissy.
No, it's good.
Oh, well, I was just saying when I heard the news that Robin Williams had passed, I was actually at work. I was on the reference desk, and I was actually going through and thinking of, I was thinking of all these movies that I had seen Robin Williams in, and most of them are comedies. And I remembered, well, some of his dramatic stuff, maybe I want to try, because I'd never really got into it. And then I realized that, and I got looking at Dead Poet Society, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, this is a movie I ought to have seen when I was a kid. How did I never see this? And I honestly, I've never seen it even. And so that was like the first one I put on hold at the library, because I'm like, I have to watch this movie because, it's an English teacher, it's about poetry, it's, this is all the things that I just would love, and I know I would enjoy this movie. And I was like, the whole time I'm just sitting there baffled. I'm like, how in the world have I not seen this? And so as soon as it comes in, I'm going to watch it, and I'll probably post a review on my blog or something somewhere and talk about it and gush over it, because I'm sure it's. I mean, everything I've ever heard about it is nothing but praise for it, and it just it's kind of sad that it's taken this to get me to watch it.
So, next is something a bit more obscure that I know nobody else other than me is going to know what this is. But Robin, before Aladdin was actually part of the Disney family. Now, this is actually slightly out of order because the other thing that I have on the list, actually, he did before he did Aladdin. But not just in the Disney movies, but Robin actually made appearances in a couple of Disney attractions in the Disney parks. And one of them was he played the timekeeper in the attraction of the same name. That was in the Disney parks. I don't know the exact dates. It's long been closed, unfortunately. It's actually one that I never got to see in person, but it is. I've heard the audio from it so many times on the Disney radio I listen to that plays a lot of attraction and area music and sometimes sound from attractions. So I feel like I know the attraction even though I never actually got to experience it. But the attraction was the Timekeeper, and it was, at one point, it was in the Magic Kingdom in Tomorrowland, in Tokyo Disneyland, in their equivalent of Tomorrowland, in Disneyland Paris, in Discoveryland. And the version that I've always heard is, I'm assuming, the version from the Magic Kingdom. But it was open from November 1994 to February of 2006. And what it was what they call a circle vision attraction, where you go into a theater and the screen is 360 degrees. So you're in a giant circle with all these screens that go in a circle. And it plays a movie. They have a couple of them still. There's one in Canada in Epcot. You can see the Canadian film. It's a 360. But the whole premise was that Robin Williams voiced this robot called the Timekeeper, who has been working on a time machine. And he was inspired by H.G. Wells and Jules Verne and all these great minds that have talked about, invention and time travel and all that. And he is assisted by this other robot named Nine Eye, voiced by Rhea Perlman, of all people. But Nine Eye has 9 eyes that are cameras, and Timekeeper is going to send her through time, and because she's got these 9 cameras that wrap all the way around her head, you get the 360 degree view on the screens, and they send her back in time, and he accidentally sends her to the dinosaurs, and she almost gets ran over, and she goes through all these time periods, and actually ends up eventually at the World's Fair, and encounters Jules Verne. And Jules Verne convinces Timekeeper Nine-Eye to take him to the future so that he can see it. So they go through this, and there's these wacky hijinks. They put him in a car, and he's driving crazy, and they take him into space, and they take him to modern day New York, and one of my favorite lines, actually, from Nine-Eye is, "Here it is, Mr. Verne, New York, New York, the land of 10,000 dreams and one parking space."
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah. But they take him to space, and Jules Verne is, from Earth to the moon, surely you've made the trip in your time, and they're like, you wrote the book all about it, and then they realize they have to get him back to the World's Fair. And they go zooming through through all this time, and they think they get him there, and they get him to France, but it's the wrong time, and then they finally get him to the right time, and just as they're dropping him off, H.G. Wells comes walking up, and he's like, "I don't believe this," and Jules Verne is like, "Well, it's not impossible, maybe improbable," and then, Time Creeper's like, "Okay, now that we've realized that my time machine works flawlessly, who wants to volunteer?" Just wants to volunteer, and they end up going way off into the future, encountering Jules Verne and H.G. Wells, and it's just, there's a lot of funny lines that I think were probably improv that they let Robin do, but it's a cute attraction. I wish I had been visiting the parks at the time when it existed, so I could see it in person. But you can find video of it online, and we'll post a link so you can see it. It's one of those Disney attractions that, if you went, you saw it and you remember it fondly. And unfortunately, I didn't go when it existed, but I wish I had. But it's one of those things that it's another one of those notches or check boxes of Robin Williams in the Disney family. So,
well, ironically, you now need a time machine to go see it.
Exactly. Or just YouTube.
YouTube's as good as any time machine.
Be in and experience the whole 3D thing.
Yeah, because
that's true.
You actually need a time machine.
Yeah.
To do this.
I don't know for sure if when you're waiting in line to get in. I know there's a pre-show with Nine-Eye, introducing herself and explaining what they're about to experience. And I think there's a short introduction from Timekeeper. I don't know if there were actually ever any animatronics. I'd have to actually find a good decent video, and I haven't looked at video recently, so I don't know if they were purely just on the screen or if they were animatronics too. So. Unfortunately, that space now is occupied by the Monsters, Inc. laugh floor. So.
Well, they can't keep everything, I guess.
No, they can't.
Yeah, well, I just learned that a Canadian themed World Amusement Park is getting rid of one of their coasters because they want to use the space for other stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's the thing with amusement parks, is they don't stay the same, which is probably good because stuff does wear out.
The roller coaster that they're getting rid of has been in the park for almost 30 years.
Wow. That's a long time to keep a coaster.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can. It's one I've been on, and one I like. It's a standing up. It's one where you stand up.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Ooh.
So,
well, we'll move on with our list, and I've got the next one. And the reason I love this one, it goes back to nostalgia again. Everything, think everything with me with Robin Williams goes down to nostalgia, because most of the movies that I saw him in, that I remember seeing him in, were from my childhood. But this one has a little special twist to it, because like I said before, and as a kid, I grew up on Disney, and like when I'd go visit my grandma, they had a ton. Like we had a few. We had a pretty big collection of Disney stuff, whether it was stuff we bought or stuff we recorded off TV. But my grandma, they had tons of Disney videos. I don't know why or how, but they just had them. So every time I go visit, I had to watch something. And one of them she had was Peter Pan, and I loved it. It was just, I mean, you think in my young mind, my 4 or 5 year old mind, you've got a story that has fairies, flying boys, pirates, mermaids, Indians, and a bunch of other stuff, and it's like all these things that you wouldn't think you'd associate with it, but it all works together. It's all in one story, and it's like the ultimate. And then later, as I grew up and found out how J.M. Barrie wrote the story, and that it was these kids that he knew were making up these stories in their house or in their backyard or whatever, and he wrote down the stories because when you're a little kid, you make up all kinds of crazy stuff, and it's just in my mind, I was like, man, that is just so perfect, and I loved it. I mean, when I was a kid, I didn't really analyze it. I just loved it on its own merit. So when the movie Hook came out, I can just imagine, I can just imagine Steven Spielberg and his crew sitting in there going, what if Peter Pan actually did grow up? And that is what Hook is about. And I can think of no one else better to play the role of grown-up Peter Pan than Robin Williams, because to me, he was always just this great big kid who, you could, like, I was, when I was watching the movie, and the character, just to make this official, it's it's Peter Banning, who is Peter Pan. Anyway, so that's the name of the character. And I'm watching this movie, and at the beginning, he's this stuffy lawyer, and he doesn't have time for his kids, even though he clearly loves his children, he loves his family, and he has a good heart, but he just gets, when you're an adult, you get sucked into work, and you're a workaholic parent, and you're trying to do right, you're trying to provide for your kids and everything, but there's a line in the movie like that his wife says to him, is like, your children need you, you're missing their childhood. Now I can't remember exactly, but then I was watching the movie, and then there's the scene where he's with the Lost Boys, and they're eating dinner, and they have to imagine that they have dinner on the table, and he's getting really frustrated. He's like, there's no food here, and the kids are all like, you have to imagine it, and he's like totally not imagining it, but then he does, and he starts imagining it, and then you see that he really is Peter Pan. He is this carefree, childlike, innocent person, and he has that imagination, and they, it's like, oh my gosh, Peter Pan, he's back, and all that, and it's so wonderful, and he just does that childlike, carefree, and you forget that he's a grown man. You forget that he's an adult, that he has kids of his own, and there's even a point where he's talking to Tinkerbell, and he has forgotten for a moment that he's there to save his children, and Tinkerbell goes, do you remember why you're here? And he's like, no, and he has, at this point in the movie, he hasn't flown yet because he hasn't found his happy thought, but then it turns out his happy thought is the moment he became a father, with the birth of his son. The son, coincidentally, is the same kid that hates him because he missed his baseball game, and Captain Hook is turning his children against him and everything. So I think, as I was looking over our list here, and there's a lot of, his humorous, we've got a lot of Robin Williams' humorous, comedic performances, which are the ones I remember. Like, a lot of lists, a lot of top 10 lists I've seen just kind of floating out there this past week focus on his dramatic stuff, and he does dramatic very well. But I think what's unique about some of these, a couple of these other, like this one, and at least 2 or 3 more on our list that we'll get to, is that he balances the comedy with the drama, and in Hook he does that so well, especially at the end where he saves the kids and they go home, and they're happy to see the kids because they were so afraid where they were, they were in danger and everything. And he's chucking the phone out the window. The guy keeps calling him, and he does that gruff. He has that gruff moment where he's like, "What did I tell you about this window?" And he goes, "Always leave it open." And they're just happy and celebratory, poignancy. And then the end of the movie, his last line is a riff on a line earlier about death would be the next great adventure or something. He goes, "No, to live would be a great adventure," and it's just so hopeful and heartwarming. So it's not all jokey, fun-loving, carefree, although that's a big part of it. It's also that there's a certain amount of hope to it, and that I think is why I love the story of Peter Pan so much, and why I love just fairy tales in general. And when you take a traditional story and put a little twist on it. Doing the course of this podcast, I've talked a lot about how I love fairy tales. That's why I got into Once Upon a Time, and I love to see what you can do with the traditional fairy tale. And this movie was probably the earliest I really got into something like that. And it was seeing Peter Pan as an adult, but he's still that childlike innocence. But he's also got that sort of Papa Wolf underlying extra layer of that, because it's his children who are in danger, and that's why he's come back to remember his lost childhood, but also to realize that his childhood wasn't everything in his life, that he left because he fell in love and wanted to have a family and things. So there's just so many different layers to it, and it's it's an ingenious movie, really, and you wouldn't really think of it. Like, it wouldn't be one that you think of all the time, but you get diving into the story and the characters, and it's just there's so much depth to it, and I just love it. But it's so much fun to watch too, especially when they're trying to get him in shape to fight Captain Hook. It's great.
Doesn't he marry Wendy's granddaughter?
Yeah, it's her granddaughter. Because he keeps coming back for Wendy, and then there's this one time where he comes back and she's an old woman and her granddaughter's sleeping in the bed, and he sees her and falls in love with her and decides he wants to stay and doesn't want to go back to Neverland, so he wants to stay and grow up and all that. I watched it yesterday. That's why it's so fresh in my mind.
Yeah. Well, I remember seeing it a while ago, so and what stuck is that I think it was that scene where he comes back and he sees her, and Wendy's don't keep, and he falls in love with her, and when he's like, don't keep doing this if you're gonna,
yeah, he's like, I'm gonna give her a kiss, and Wendy, it was actually played by Maggie Smith, who is another one of my favorite actors. Mm-hmm. I love Maggie Smith.
Wendy,
and she
Wendy starts out as a young girl, and then she turns into Gwyneth Paltrow, and then she turns into Maggie Smith.
Yep. Yep. If only all of us could age that gracefully.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway. But yeah, so she's delightful in that, and you have Dustin Hoffman as Captain Hook, and Bob Hoskins as Mr. Smee. I totally forgot about that, and yeah, didn't he pass away earlier this year?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, oh well, and I saw that, and I realized I'm like, oh well, give me a paper cut and pour lemon juice on it then. No, it's such a good movie, and I cannot for the life of me remember if I have seen if Hook was the first time I ever saw Robin Williams or in a movie, or if it was Aladdin, because I swear I'd known who Robin Williams was before I saw Aladdin, but Aladdin was so early in my life, and Hook was too. So I kind of think it was Hook that was the first movie I saw that had Robin Williams in it. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. But it's a stellar performance, and I don't know, I love it.
Mm-hmm. So, speaking of Peter Pan, this actually works out well. The other Disney attraction that Robin has made an appearance in, at least that I know of, somewhat well, was an attraction. It was a film, essentially, another film called Back to Neverland, and it was at the Disney Hollywood Studios, back when the studios was an actual working studio. They had a spot where you could go and see movie making, especially animation. They would have animators there doing art and drawing cells and that sort of thing. But they had a little film that would kind of show how an animated movie is made. They still have a similar film now, except now it's Mushu, voiced by what's his face, Eddie
Murphy.
Eddie Murphy, yeah, from Mulan. But before, back in the day, it was hosted by Walter Cronkite. And was Walter Cronkite at the Disney Studios saying, let's show the fine people today how an animated Disney movie is made, and he comes across a man on the street, and it happens to be Robin Williams, and he takes him, and they go through the process. And the process that they have him go through is the example that they use is making Peter Pan. They show them how the actors record their voices, and then they draw the cells, and then they combine it with the animation and the sound, and he becomes one of the lost boys, and he ends up encountering Captain Hook, and he manages to escape with help with the crocodile and all that. So it was just a cute thing, not quite as elaborate as the Timekeeper. But another one of those things where, Robin gets to be goofy and zany, especially opposite of Walter Cronkite. That's the way things were, all proper Walter Cronkite. It's one of those ones that I never got to see, but I've heard the audio for it, and I'm sure there's probably video of it somewhere. What good quality it is, I don't know. But I've definitely heard the audio for it several times, and it's funny. Without even seeing it, you can just imagine, when Robin is Robin, the faces he's probably making, and the gestures that he's making while talking to Walter Cronkite, and his reactions once he turns into an animated character and all this fun stuff. So it's another one of those that's, no longer there in the Disney parks, but that lives on in the memories and YouTube. So I think Michelle has the next one.
I do. I have Daniel Hillard and Mrs. Doubtfire from the movie Mrs. Doubtfire.
Euphegina.
Yeah,
Mrs. Euphegina Doubtfire. Yeah.
Yeah, that. I've seen this movie once a while ago, but I remember, for the most part, it's a comedy, but there's some really touching moments because the whole thing is he dresses as a woman to try and see his kids, and at the end he reconnects with them and stuff. If someone's seen this more recently or has a better memory, can you?
That's pretty much the premise in a nutshell. Yeah. But it just
they get divorced, and he's kind of a screw up, pretty much, and that's why they get divorced. And you see the scene where he's in the apartment with the kids, and they're having takeout Chinese, and then the mom comes back to get him, and she's like, "Wow, yeah, this is a dump. You're really gonna try to get custody of your kids back with this." So, and the mom she's looking for a housekeeper and a babysitter and he ends up changing the want ad that she's putting in. So he starts calling in with all these different voices of people calling to get the job, and it's kind of a funny montage because they're all just these off the wall crazy people. And actually, in the movie, he is a voice actor. His character is a voice actor. So it's in the opening sequence, you see him working on a cartoon, and he's putting in some very questionable content on the fly, and his boss is like, "What are you doing?" So then he finally comes up with Mrs. Doubtfire, and she gets the job, and she's like the best. She's the best everything. She's like an unupdated version of Mary Poppins almost, I guess, just without the magic. But my favorite scene in this movie is because the mom starts dating Pierce Brosnan and James Bond, basically, and he's a good guy, and he loves the kids and everything, but Daniel is like, he's horning in on my territory, basically. I mean, he knows his marriage is not good, but he still wants to be in his kid's life. So they're at the pool, and he and Mrs. Doubtfire is at the not the open bar, but like at the concession stand or whatever. And Pierce Brosnan comes up, and he's talking to somebody, and is saying, "Oh, those kids, I love them, blah blah blah." And you can see Mrs. Doubtfire off to the side, and so Pierce Brosnan walks off. Mrs. Doubtfire grabs a lime or a lemon or something from the fruit bowl, and he chucks it at Pierce Brosnan. And he's got my favorite line in this whole movie is she goes, "Oh, did you see them? There was a run by fruiting." There was more to it, but I just always remember it was a run by fruiting because he threw a lemon at him. And so Pierce Brosnan walks off, and Mrs. Doubtfire sits back down to her drink, and then the male voice comes out, and he's like, "Jerk," and someone looks at him, and it's such a funny movie, but like you said, it's a touching movie too, because it's this dad who is he's trying to be better for his kids, and he wants to be a positive force in his kid's life, but because of custody and legal stuff, he can't, so he has to dress up as a woman to be there for his kids, and it's so interesting, like, just because he's under all that makeup and prosthetics and stuff, but you can, I mean, it's still a Robin Williams performance. Oh yes, whipped cream at one point.
That was one of my favorite scenes.
He sets his chest on fire and he puts himself out. He's like, "My first day as a woman, I'm already having hot flashes."
This movie is very quotable. There are a lot of really good lines.
Yes,
but it's like you said, it is a touching, heartwarming story, and the way, what he ends up doing in the end is, he gets found out, and there's some ramifications to that, but then they end up. Mrs. Doubtfire ends up getting her own TV show, and it's a really good movie.
Mm. Good family film.
Yeah,
yes, it's
definitely
one of my grandma's and I's go-to pick-me-up movie that we watch.
Well, I'm definitely gonna have to rewatch it because yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in a while, but I did have to go find the run by fruiting scene again. I don't know why that one's my favorite, but it is.
I always laughed at when he was on the bus, and at one point, like, I forgot exactly what happened, like, he was taking off the stockings are falling off, and the bus driver said, "Ooh, natural," or something like that. That always got me giggling.
Oh yeah, there's
the
requisite.
Bus driver was like hitting on him.
Yeah.
All right, well, are we all done with Mrs. Doubtfire?
Yes, I believe so.
All right, so next up is another favorite, is when he played Alan Parrish in the movie Jumanji. And for ones who don't remember, he was, as a little boy, was playing this the Jumanji game, when he got sucked into the game for I can't remember how many years. Do you guys remember?
26 years. I just watched this the other day, so like Chrissy, it's nice. Fresh.
And when he comes back, and he's all dressed up in his jungle get up and sing those two kids, and I just love the reactions of when they came. And okay, Rachel, you said you've seen it recently, so maybe because it's been a little while since I've seen it.
The whole premise is it starts out with him as a little kid, and obviously Robin Williams doesn't play the little kid. He's good, but he wasn't that good, I don't think. But he's this boy who's the only child of a successful businessman in this town, and he gets picked on. And his parents go out for the night and leave him home alone, and they'd had a fight, and he during the day he'd discovered the Jumanji game at a construction site near the shoe factory that his dad owns and operates, and the neighbor girl comes by to return his bike, who had been stolen by her boyfriend, who's the main bully who's been beating him up. And he's getting ready to run away, but they get to talking, and they hear the drums coming from the Jumanji game, and they decide to play it, and he rolls and lands on a space that says something along the lines of, until I think a 5 or 7 has been rolled, you will await in the jungle. And he gets sucked into the game. And she gets so freaked out by that and these bats that have appeared that she runs off. And so the game sits, never touched, for 26 years until his old house gets bought. And these two kids discover the game and start playing, and stuff starts happening. But one of the kids rolls a 5 or 7, and it releases him from the game. But it's been 26 years, so now he's a grown man. And he doesn't know what year it is. He doesn't realize how long he's been gone. You know, at this point, the town is nothing like he remembered. His dad's shoe factory has been closed for years. His parents have been deceased for quite a while. And he has this regret that he never made up with his dad, but realizes that if he wants to save his town, that he and these kids and the girl that he originally started the game with have to complete the game. And the game itself, I wish they apparently it's based on a book, and I don't know if maybe in the book they give more backstory of the origin of the game.
The book it's a picture book by Chris Van Allsburg, who's the guy who wrote The Polar Express. So it's not that there's a lot of depth to the story already. It's more that the art was just really good. If you're familiar with Chris Van Allsburg, his picture books are extraordinary. And I was really surprised that they could make a movie out of this, but now that I think about it, I guess it makes sense. You know, you have a board game that's possessed, and you know, you can do a pretty good movie with it.
I mean, after rewatching it, I'm like, well, you know, this movie's really cool, and it's really, you know, creepy that, you know, you're playing this game that essentially is trying to kill you. I kind of wish there was more backstory on the board game itself, like who created this thing, like what sadistic person created a game that if you start playing it, you're probably going to die before you finish.
It kind of makes me wonder. I mean, in the book, the Van Allsburg is known for his very whimsical stories, but you think about it, you're like, and the book is very. It's not as, you know, things are deadly dangerous. It's more like, oh, elephants have come out of the board game. Oh, so have tigers. Yeah. And, you know, they're just sitting in the living room, sort of a thing. Yeah. But I guess, you know, in the movie you have to bring up the danger level a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
To it, too.
But
just a little bit.
Yeah.
There's actually Zathura, which is a sort of sequel. It's a space bird. It's like a space.
Oh yeah, Zathura.
Jumanji.
They made a movie of that one too.
Yes, they did.
I haven't seen it.
It didn't do as well.
I didn't really like it.
Yeah.
I remember seeing Zathura, but I never saw Jumanji.
So you should go back and watch Jumanji.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's on Netflix.
Like because when I watched this, or I had heard there was Jumanji, and I'm always meant to, but never got around to it. So I should definitely get around to it soon.
It's on Netflix. That's how I watched it. So,
good.
Catch it while it's still on there. So, but it's a fun movie. It's a fun kids family movie. Robin Williams' character, he's reluctant at first to help these kids finish the game, but he realizes that everything that he knows and loves is gone, and he might as well try and save himself and his town by completing the game, and ends up reconnecting with the neighbor girl, and they find romance along the way, and there's some time travel involved too. They end up completing the game and they get sent back to when they were kids, and they're able to change the future of not only the two kids that'll that they'll find again when they're adults, but the town itself, because the town had been, once the shoe factory closed, it kind of lost everything that helped make the town flourish originally. So he's able to help change the future by completing Jumanji. So it's a fun movie. So
yes,
easy to watch. So. Well, next is one that I don't want to say I'm showing my age because I'm not that old, but I grew up on Nick at Night. I didn't have cable as a kid, but my grandpa did. So it was always exciting to go visit Grandpa because he had cable. But the channel, the TV was almost always on Nickelodeon during the day, and then in the evening it switched to Nick at Night, and they'd show reruns of old TV shows like The Dick Van Dyke Show and Dragnet and I Love Lucy and all that. And two of the shows that I remember watching were Happy Days and Mork and Mindy. And Happy Days came first, and there was an episode of Happy Days where this strange alien named Mork from Ork comes to the Happy Days family to observe humankind, and ends up making a mess of things, but fixes it all before he leaves. But the character apparently connected with people enough that they did a spin-off, essentially, and he got his own show called Mork and Mindy. And the whole premise is that this alien named Mork from the planet Ork is sent to Earth to observe humankind and report back to his supervisor, this all-knowing kind of disembodied voice named Orson, and would kind of explain the things he's observed. He ends up encountering this woman named Mindy, who invites him to come live with her and be her roommate. And there was a half-hour sitcom, and there'd be some sort of zany thing that would happen, either due to Mork's ignorance of the way things that work on Earth, or just miscommunication or whatever. And something would happen, but then they'd fix it, and they'd laugh about it. And then at the very end, the last minute or so was Mork communicating, I guess telepathically, I guess would be the best way to say it, because he'd be sitting there and he'd go, Mork calling Orson, come in, Orson. And then he'd see him standing in this blank room talking to this disembodied voice that is Orson, and kind of give his report at the end of the episode. And then usually have something to do with something that happened in the episode itself. it was only on for like 3 or 4 seasons. Eventually, Mork and Mindy developed a romance, and they get married, and then they have a child. But because the way things work on Mork's planet, Mork is the one that has the child. He lays an egg. That's how they have the child. And then the egg hatches. The baby is an old man, and it's Jonathan Winters, who I think passed away last year. But apparently on Mork's planet, people age in reverse, or they look. Well, the way they look, they age in reverse. So they start out looking old, and as they age, they get younger. So that's why when the egg hatches, it's an old man. But by then, the show had kind of jumped the shark, and the ratings weren't doing so well, so it got canceled. But it was just one of those funny things. And whenever he greeted somebody, he'd raise his hand up, and it looks a lot like the Vulcan salute, where you've got the 2 fingers grouped together with the V and the thumb, and he would say "Nanu Nanu." If you wanted to shake hands, you did the Vulcan salute, and you connected where the fingers were separated and shook hands. And if he originally, until Mindy, I think, broke him of the habit and convinced him to sit like a normal person, when he sat down, he would sit down by putting his head in the seat of the chair. So, those are the things that really stood out to me. But it was one of those kitschy 70s sitcoms that you would expect of the time period, spinning off of Happy Days, which obviously was set in the 50s. But then, this Mork and Mindy took place in the 70s, which, I guess counterculture and aliens and all that was kind of cool and nifty and far out, man, and all that. So it was... It was one of those things that people were willing to watch at least for a couple of years. But it was one of those. It was really the program that really springboarded Robin's career from being just a stand-up comedian to an actor. So, and I don't know where you can watch it. I don't think it's like on Netflix. Maybe on Hulu or Amazon Prime. I'm not entirely sure. I'm sure you can find like the entire series run on DVD box sets. Like I said, there's only like 2 or 3 seasons.
I think our library has the DVDs. I think I've seen them floating around. So, I'm not sure if it's on Netflix or anything like that, but check your library. Yeah. They might have it.
Oh. Next is, and hopefully somebody can. I've actually never seen this movie, but I haven't seen the movie, but I'm somewhat familiar with the character because I saw the original Absent-Minded Professor, and this was kind of a remake, reboot-ish of the Absent-Minded Professor. Is his character Professor Philip Brainerd from the movie Flubber. And like I said, I've never seen the movie, but I will say if you go to Disney World to Epcot and the attraction Journey into Imagination with Figment, the premise is that you are going to the Imagination Institute, and the line where you stand in line is you start at the reception area of the Institute, and you walk down this hallway going by several offices. And one of them, the office is for Professor Brainerd, and they've got his picture up on the wall. And another one is Professor Wayne Slazinski from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. So I've never seen Flubber, but there's a nice nod to him there in Journey into Imagination there at Epcot.
Well, Flubber for me, I mean, it's one of those, like I'm talking about, childhood staples that. I watched it, and it's just fun. It's just so much fun, and it's funny, and there's a lot of heart to it. And he's this goofy professor that is dating this I don't remember what she is at the school. They work at the same college. I think she's a professor as well, but I think she might even be like a head of faculty or something. I can't remember. But they've been dating for a long time, and they've been engaged for a long time actually, and he keeps forgetting to go to the wedding. Because he gets sidetracked with all of his experiments. And I haven't seen the original Absent-Minded Professor, so I don't know if that's what it is in the original. But he has like these little robots that he's invented that help him. One of them is voiced by Jodie Benson, who plays Ariel. And no matter what she shows up in, she's always going to be Ariel to me. That's just a fact from The Little Mermaid. Professor Brainerd gets sidetracked with inventing flubber from his wedding, and his fiance says, "No more. I can't do this if our wedding isn't that important to you." At the same time, their college is facing some financial difficulties, and so he discovers that you can do all these different things with flubber, like it bounces, and you can apply it. Like he takes it to the basketball game because their basketball team is just so terrible. But he sneaks it onto their sneakers and onto their hands, and onto the basketball. So for however it works, the flubber helps them win the game, and all these things. And he also manages to work in a flying car with the flubber, like he does something with the engine. And you can just tell that he's having fun with this role. It's just it's a silly, goofy thing, and it's a family show. But there's also there's still that heart underneath it. That he's a good person. He's a good man. He has good intentions. He just gets really involved with his science. And in the end, they do get married, but they have to do it via. Well, it wasn't Skype, but it's basically Skype by video chat, because he's still back in the lab, and he has the little robot with her view screen, and they have to get married that way because he's still back in the lab working, and they finally just figured out this is how it's going to be, and then they fly off into the sunset, and it's just a cute movie. It's one that I always loved. It kind of gets ignored because it's one of those, like in the late 90s, Disney was putting out a lot of these different movies that weren't that great. They were okay, but they weren't like instant classics sort of a thing. But it's just one that I remember watching over and over again, and I just love it. It's not going to win any awards, but I tend to love things that aren't necessarily critically acclaimed, but that I just love, and that's one of them. Like I said earlier, Robin Williams made up a lot of my favorite childhood movies, and Flubber is one of them, and that's all there is to it. Anyone else seen this one?
I have, but it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It's like
because you said in the late 90s, so I might have seen it as a kid.
Yeah.
Not in years.
I think it was like 97 is when it came out.
Well, I would have been about 7, so I might have seen it then, or maybe in the few years following. But
yeah, it did replay a lot on the Disney Channel. So if you have Disney Channel or ABC Family or something like that, you might have run into it.
I might have, or my grandparents possibly, or someone. I don't know. I caught it at some point, and I sort of remember, but
yeah, it's just cute.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen it, but I just watched it so much when it. I guess I was a little bit older. I might have been in middle school. Well, yeah, I was in middle school because I was 12, 12, 13, but I don't know. I watched a lot of TV when I was that age, and I just remember all these things. But yeah.
I remember my sis. Sorry.
Oh no, go ahead. You go.
I say I can remember my sister and I laying on the floor watching it, but I just can't remember too much of the plot. Just like I remember the basketball scene, I remember the wedding, and I think I remember the robot kind of falling in love with the professor, but I'm not sure if I remember that right, or that's a total weird imagination of mine.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's not necessarily going to be an instant classic, but it's nostalgic. I enjoy it, and it's he's still got the Robin Williams trademark zaniness, but there's also a lot of when his fiance breaks up with him, you can tell he's devastated, and he wants to do anything he can to get her back, to impress her, and she's being she's got this other guy running after her, and he wants to get with her, and so there's a little bit of a rivalry going on that way, and so you can tell. I mean, it's nothing. It's not a story any of us haven't seen before, but I think it's just that Robin Williams sparkle that brings that little extra fun to it, and it's something that I've always enjoyed. And I guess we'll round out our list with one that I personally love. I don't think it gets enough credit, just because the plot is so out there and a little far fetched. But again, this is a role that I don't think anybody else could have done at all, just because Robin Williams just has a way of doing childlike innocence, and that role is the movie Jack, where he plays Jack Powell. And the premise of this is that Jack is a 10-year-old boy in a 40-year-old man's body. He was born with a I don't want to call it disease, but with a condition where he ages 4 times faster than a normal human being does. So, because he was born way early, but he was a fully formed child, and so then it cuts 10 years later, and he's been homeschooled all his life, and his homeschool tutor is Bill Cosby, which you gotta love Bill Cosby. I don't care who you are, he's fantastic. He's another childhood staple of mine. So I've got these two legends that I've grown up looking up to and enjoying their performances, playing off each other, which I think is marvelous. And it comes to the point where Jack, he wants to go to school because he sees all the other kids in his neighborhood, but his parents understandably are very hesitant to send him to school because he's in an adult body, even though he's got a 10-year-old mind, and it's just so funny and so heartwarming and so endearing the way that this whole thing plays out. It's a little bit like reverse Peter Pan, I guess you can call it, where he starts out childlike and innocent and so I don't know how to say it. Just, I don't want to say naive a bit, but it does play that up. And then he has to learn how to get along with the other kids. The other kids have to learn how to get along with him. And you find out later that his condition is, he can't handle a lot of stress because his body is working so hard, and he goes back to being homeschooled again, but he hates it because he wants to see his friends, and his friends want to see him, and it actually closes out on a really, really poignant scene. It's their high school graduation, and obviously he's aged to a very old man by this point, but he's valedictorian, and he gives a really sweet speech that I've seen quoted, in the wake of Robin Williams' passing. I've seen it quoted on Tumblr and other places about, living life to the fullest, how fleeting life is. And Jack says, think of me when, the things that I've been able to do throughout the course of my life. And, you kind of get the feeling that he doesn't have much longer to live, even though he's only 17, but physically he's much older. And it's an interesting premise. It's one that critics have nitpicked to death, which annoys me, but that's what critics are going to do, whatever. Because it's just such a heartwarming and sweet story. And he does it so well. He plays the little boy so well, and anyone else, I think you would look at it like, okay, that's creepy, and a grown man with all these kids running around. But he just, you believe that he is the 10-year-old boy. You believe that he can, that he is an equal to these kids, and he just fits in with them so well. And I think it's just, I don't think that aspect of his acting gets enough credit. And maybe it's just because I work with kids, and I love kids literature and stuff like that. I just anything I think that kids, and I remember when I watched that movie, and anytime I saw Robin Williams, I even remember thinking of an interview I saw with him. It was on Nickelodeon. He must have been promoting some movie or another, and I can't remember what it was. And he was on, I guess it's called Nick News at the time, and there was all these kids. That. They were interviewing him like it was a news thing, and he was just having a blast with these kids. Just you didn't get the feeling that he was just there. Oh yeah, I have to be here because because my agent said or whatever. But he was just having so much fun, just enjoying himself, and never made the kids feel like their question was dumb. And you didn't feel like he was just phoning it in just because he had to be there. He was genuinely having a good time with this. And when you're a kid, you remember stuff like that. Like when you're a kid, you know when someone's kind of playing you off, and when adults are sort of, oh yeah, whatever, you're just a kid. But and I think that's why growing up watching all his stuff, and that was, I just always remember that he when he was doing kids movies and stuff like that, he was into it, and he was genuinely there and genuinely wanted to entertain whoever his target audience was, whether that was kids, adults, or anything in between.
Oh, that sounds like something that I would like. I'm interested. Like, I want to see that now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's even and one scene that is actually a total heartbreaker is they're actually going to have a dance, and he asks his teacher to be his date, and his logic is, he's aware that it would look strange if he took one of the girls that's his age, but he's like, well, because, and he tells his teacher, well, you're older and I look older, we'd be a good fit, and his teacher has to, ethically, she has to turn him down because that wouldn't be appropriate. And it's just it's just so heart-wrenching to see his little heart be broken, even though he's it's a grown man playing this part, but he reacts the way a 10-year-old child being rejected, because kids get crushes on their teachers all the time. And teachers have to let them down easy. But they still are like, I mean, it's a heartbreaking moment, I think, but it's played so well. It's just a good movie.
I think that's one I haven't seen, because it doesn't sound familiar, but it's one that's not going to be on my list, because it sounds like a good one.
Mm-hmm.
It is. And there's a scene where they build a treehouse, and they have, and Bill Cosby comes up, and he's like, what are you boys doing? And and they're like, putting together this big gross pot of yuck, and Bill Cosby has to eat it if he wants to be part of their group, and he does, and he makes a big joke out of it, and it's just so funny. And Bill Cosby's another one who plays off kids very, very well. And
yes.
So, and that's the reason why I love Bill Cosby so much, is because I remember him from my childhood, and those things stick with you for years and years and years. Even though later you find out that, well, Bill Cosby's never done, real dirty stand-up comedy, but Robin Williams has, but that's fine. And it's kind of like when I found out what kind of stand-up comedy Bob Saget does. Even though I remember him as Danny Tanner from Full House, and I wasn't traumatized, but I was mortified because I was so young. I was quite young when I found that out. I was just like, oh, okay, that's how, But, back when I was young and naive, now I know better.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I mean, so many people are rightly praising Robin Williams for his more adult, grown-up roles. And I just wanted to, if you guys want to chime in here, for my part, I just want to say, you know what? And I kept saying it over and over again. Robin Williams was my childhood. He was the genie. He was Peter Pan. He was all these different characters that I grew up with that. And I watched these movies over and over again. And that's what I'm going to remember him from. I may later see some of his more grown up roles and enjoy that. But he's always going to be the genie for forever and ever for me. And I'm really sad he's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know as me personally, and at least part of my group of friends that's the diehard Disney fans, that, his passing hit the Disney community really hard. There's a time there where he and Disney were not on the best of terms. There for a while in the late 90s, early 2000s, but they managed to patch things up though, which is good. But he is such a staple of the Disney wheelhouse, not just for the movies, but that's like the other things that I mentioned, in the parks as well. He's got his fingerprint. A few years ago he was awarded at, I think, the D23 Expo. They have one of the highest honors you can get from the Disney company if you weren't like an Imagineer or something. Because the Imagineers and all that, they can earn a window on Main Street as like the highest honor you can get as an Imagineer. But like the actors and stuff, like Julie Andrews and Annette Funicello and all these people that you remember from Disney films, one of the honors that they can bestow on those people is what they call the Disney Legend Award. And Robin was awarded the Disney Legend Award a couple of years ago, and they've got a plaque with his name on it at the actual working studio out in California. Somebody posted a picture, I think Disney may have, where they put up a wreath of flowers and stuff right in front of his plaque at the studios in his honor. But he literally was and is a Disney legend in all intents and purposes. He was awarded that honor, and those of us in the Disney community, anytime we lose somebody, it's hard, but those of us that were lucky enough to grow up on that era of Aladdin, what a lot of people call Disney animation's second golden age, or the animation renaissance there in the 90s, when they released Aladdin and The Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast, where the animation side of it had been struggling for so long, and they came up with these movies that just did so well. And a lot of that was the ability of the animators, but a lot of it also goes to the people that they cast as these characters, and the genie was one of them. So to lose somebody who just brought to life such a memorable character from that era it's heart-wrenching, and it's going to be a while, I think, before we are able to watch his films without a little bit of heartbreak in between the laughs. I don't know if you guys saw that Aladdin is on Broadway, and it's in its first run on Broadway. It's one of the newest Broadway shows for Disney. But a couple days after Robin's passing, after the last curtain call, they brought the cast out on stage, and the guy that plays Genie on Broadway took the cast and the entire audience into a round of singing "Friend Like Me." in honor of Robin, and it was so sweet, yet at the same time it was so sad. That that it's sad and kind of unfortunate that we have these great entertainers, and they have these award ceremonies and stuff like the Oscars and the Emmys and the Tonys and all that, and it's great, and things like the Kennedy Center honors and all that, where people are recognized for their contribution to the entertainment industry. But I think it's kind of sad that they get the pat on the back and here's your Oscar, and then that's it. And you don't really look and think and really get a chance to reflect and show your respect for a person's body of work until they pass. And it's kind of sad that, these movies were all like, oh, I saw it once, but it was a long time ago. I've been meaning to watch it again, or I'd never seen this one, but I've been meaning to watch it, and you don't. And then it takes somebody passing away for you to go, okay, I should probably take the time to do this and watch this, or, look up this information about them. So I know it may seem kind of superficial, but you can't knock what actors and actresses and comedians and those people have contributed to society. I mean, they've their performances, not just Robin's, but pick an actor that a television show or a movie has probably touched somebody at some point and maybe helped them through a tough time in their life, or made them realize something about themselves. So I'm getting all philosophical.
I think of just the diversity of people, who when this news first came out. I mean, the first tribute I saw was a picture from Sesame Street, and it was a picture of Robin Williams laughing with a pair of Muppets, and it said something like, "Well, we'll miss our friend Robin, who gave us so many laughs," or something like that. And then there were all kinds of celebrities and just all kinds of people just saying, he's one of my favorite actors. I love this performance. I love this performance, and just such a wide variety of people and just lots of late night comedians were all. I saw Conan O'Brien had a thing. Jimmy Fallon had a tribute on his show. You looked at Twitter that night when the news first came out. It's just so many people from so many different backgrounds and everything, and you just think, and some people that, I mean, I even saw a few political figures that on all sides of the spectrum that would rarely agree on anything, but they all could agree. Like, Robin Williams was an amazing actor, and he was just so good at what he did, and people were so impressed by him. He touched so many lives, and it didn't matter where you were from, who you were, and just all these little stories that were coming out, that people who'd met him and different things. Like, there was a story when he was entertaining. He was on a USO tour, and it was entertaining the troops. I think it was in Iraq. And there was a moment, and I need to look this up on YouTube. He was doing some stand-up, and it was like at the moment where they were lowering the flag, and when they were lowering the flag, and for some reason it was in the middle of his set, and the troops they stand up and they face the flag when they're lowering it for the evening. And I guess he didn't know what was going on, but he just stood there very respectful, and as they were lowering the flag, and then after it was over, he was sort of like, oh, what was that going on? And someone explained to him, they're lowering the flag for the night. He's like, oh, good. That's the only time that a comedian wants to see a bunch of people stand up and turn their back to him. And it's a really funny bit. I think, it is pretty foul-mouthed, but it's like he had that moment of, respecting respecting the flag and the military and what they were doing, but then he was also turned around and was still the entertainer and still there to support them in what they were doing. And so there were just so many different things. And, you know, he was one of a kind. I don't think we're going to see another Robin Williams anytime soon.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's people who aspire to be like him and for whom he is a role model in the comedy world and improv, but man, you can't replace that guy. And it's going to be
Well, that's why
a very different world.
That's why his death came as so much of a shock. Like,
yeah,
he's one of those people that you assume is going to be around forever.
I think he's timeless. You don't think, you know, even though you recognize everyone gets old.
I know,
everyone gets older and stuff, but he's still just on point.
I realized that
everything.
He was going to die at some point. I just didn't expect it to be quite this soon, you know?
Yeah. I think that's what everybody was hit with.
Yeah.
Was, really? You? Now? Why?
Yeah.
What?
Well, and the good thing is, you know, his work will live on, and we do have some more of his work that we still have to look.
3 upcoming projects.
Yeah. So he's got 3 films that will be released here in the future.
To be released.
So,
including
2
the
this
third
year,
night.
1 next year.
Yeah, including the third night at the museum, which I just want to mention real quick. It's not. I mean, he's in it. He plays the wax statue of Theodore Roosevelt, but it's more of an ensemble movie.
Yeah.
Those are excellent movies. I loved Night at the Museum. Ben Stiller's in it, and it's a fun one. It's a one I didn't expect to love, but
I have
do.
seen the first 2, so I'll hopefully be able to go see the third one. I don't know if I'll be able to see it in theaters, but definitely have to see it at some point.
Yeah.
Definitely. It's one I'm going to go see when it comes out.
Me too.
So that's a nice thing about, you know, these entertainers is they'll live on in celluloid.
Yep.
Yes.
Which is always good. Or in this, I guess celluloid's outdated. They'll live on in Netflix and YouTube.
Yeah. They live on digitally. That's what it is. They've achieved immortality.
Yep. So, unless anybody has anything else to add, I think we'll finish up here we're not really going to go into the nature of his passing, because by now I'm sure everybody knows exactly how he died.
And that's been discussed and dissected so many different ways.
Yeah, and probably too much, but I'm not going to get on that soapbox because we'll be here for another hour.
For me, it was. I will mention it. It was a real shaker to me because Anyway.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it hit home with a lot of people, and unfortunately, either personally themselves or friends or family members that have been apparently in the shoes that Robin was in. Like I said, we won't really get into that, but I will say that I can't speak from personal experience, but from people close to me who have been in a similar situation, but thankfully did not complete the task, as it were. That everybody's got something that they're going through. You can't know everybody's story. Even your best friend, a family member. I will say personally, I've had family members that were going through things I had no idea, absolutely no idea. And these are people that I would think that I would know because we are close enough, but I had no idea. So, obviously Robin thought that was his only choice, but to our listeners and anybody that may come across this, know that that is not always the only choice. And if you find yourself struggling, there are people that are willing to listen and are available for you to talk to. I know several people around the various social medias have passed around websites and phone numbers to various organizations, and we will do that as well. We'll put those in the show notes. The websites and phone numbers that you can get a hold of and talk to somebody who will hopefully help you see that that is not the answer to whatever it is you're going through. So,
if nothing else, this has provided a good avenue to discuss things like that for people to really understand what this is and what people go through. It's
unfortunate that it had to come to this, but if anything good could come out of this, that the dialogue has been opened for those that have maybe been too ashamed or afraid to speak out, and hopefully can find some help and not feel like death is their only answer. So
Yep. But we'll miss you, Robin Williams, and thanks for making childhood awesome.
Yes.
That's all I have to say.
Yeah. So, of course, we'll have links to all of our other news stories and everything in the show notes as well. You can find all that on YouTube and our blog, which is the 5-ish Fangirls podcast.blogspot.com. From there, you can find the links to Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Tumblr, all those fun things. You can also contact us, send us feedback that way. We're always willing to and happy to hear from our loyal listeners. So
leave us a comment, send us an email, whatever you feel like doing. We will welcome all of it.
Exactly.
And let us know what your favorite Robin Williams performance is, or the one that we mentioned, or is there something else that you... I mean, we were looking at filmography before we started, and Wikipedia lists that he has 106 movies and TV shows to his name, which is quite prolific. I mean, I'm no expert in film, but man, that's a lot.
Yeah.
And there's plenty to choose from.
Yes.
That can be your favorite, and so maybe something that's not quite as well known, or maybe even one of his more famous ones.
Yeah.
We'd love to discuss them with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So
head on over to the blog to do that, or comment on the YouTube video on our YouTube channel. That works as well. So
definitely.
That will be it for this week. So I think we'll sign off.
This is Brittany from Taos saying goodnight.
This is Chrissy in Salt Lake City saying goodnight.
This is goodnight. Michelle saying goodnight from Kitchener, Ontario.
And this is Rachel from Indianapolis, Indiana. Bangarang!
Bangarang! Bangarang!
You have been listening to the 5-ish Fangirls podcast. Any and all movies, books, games, and other forms of media mentioned are owned and operated by the respective copyright holders. No copyright infringement is intended or implied.